How you doing, everyone? My name is Evan Sorelli. I'm the vice president and co-founder of T Equipment. We're going to get started here. For anyone who has questions, feel free to ask in chat. I have a group of people who are going to moderate the questions and send them to me. So as we're going, feel free to ask as many questions as you need. Today we're here to talk about screening temperature solutions for worker safety. Most of this is going to be focused around worker safety. It's not to say that you can't use these in a whole variety of applications, but we'll be using these in getting back to work type scenarios. Let me just advance this here. So just a quick who we are. So we're one of the largest thermal camera dealers in the United States. We've been in business for over 19 years. We have many certified thermographers on staff. We have warehouses in New Jersey, Oregon, Pennsylvania. We offer major brands of thermal imaging products from several lines: FLIR, Seek, Photrix, Fluke, and a few others. One of the things we pride ourselves on, we're real people here to help you. We're staff inside of technical experts. We have a call center as well, so we can get very fast answers. I think a lot of people find it very refreshing dealing with a company that's set up like us, so we know what we're talking about. You can get to a product specialist, you can get to an engineer, you can get order status, you can get quoting and availability very, very quickly. So it's a nice hybrid setup. I'm just going to jump into elevated body temperature basics. So basically, I want to set a threshold of what the technology is, set realistic expectations for everyone here, because it's not a perfect technology. It's a technology. It's been in the news quite a bit. A lot of people are using it. It's wildly popular right now for scanning for elevated body temperature, but it's certainly not perfect, and it comes with a caveat of so there's some learning. And by that, I mean, so number one here, identify subject with an elevated body temperature. And elevated body temperature is a common symptoms of COVID-19. So in no way can we find COVID-19 or diagnose it, but we're looking for elevated body temperature and often elevated skin temperature. Persons displaying EBT can be put through more in-depth testing. So if we use a thermography type product to identify someone in either a single file or a multiple person scanning situation, that person can then be pulled for secondary screening, which we'll get into. There are a lot of things that affect skin temperature. Some of those things are environmental conditions, the sun outside, how warm it is, a whole variety of issues. So in an ideal environment, you have a controlled environment where someone is acclimated to that room for several minutes to have their skin temperature be more adjusted. So we'll talk about some of the ideal setups and some of the suggested setups and how we do the scanning itself. I will pause and give a personal story for just 1 minute where this technology came very useful for me personally. I've talked about it in one other seminar as well. On Easter, where I'm in New Jersey, we're socially distancing in our houses, but we got done Easter and we wanted to drop food off for some family members. So my father-in-law, we called ahead before we got to his house saying we're going to drop food outside, and he wasn't making a lot of sense. He thought it was World War II. He's only 65, but this particular individual is kind of a stubborn older man who lives by himself and doesn't say a lot if something's not going right. So we're just wondering what was happening. Maybe he took his medicine in incorrect order or did something. Dropped the food off, left, made a few phone calls. During those phone calls, we realized he hasn't been making sense to other people for maybe 4 or 5 days, 4 days or so. So at that point, we asked this person on the phone, has anyone taken his temperature or seen what's going on? And they said, no, that'd be a great idea. So we drove a half an hour home. I got a point and shoot thermal imager that I had at my house. Drove a half an hour back. I should say my fiance really is expecting a baby in 3 weeks. So we didn't want to go in and have exposure if something wrong was going on. So I went in from a distance, used the thermal imaging product, scanned him with it. It said he had 102.1 fever. Long story short, from there we called the paramedics. They took him to the hospital, and he was diagnosed with COVID-19. And he has since in the process of recovery. Is in a rehab facility. But what that product did for me was it allowed me to take a temperature to indicate if we had a potential problem. So it's like personally, it was very useful. I didn't want to or expect to have to use this firsthand for a screening tool, but in this case, I was able to do it from a safe distance. And when he went to the hospital, his temperature was 102.5, and the particular unit I had said it was 102.1. So, close enough. And he was in his house, which is the environmental conditions are, fairly stable, probably was 70 degrees inside of there. So, it's an interesting story of how I personally used the technology that we had to have an impact in screening. And, my story is a good one because it has a happy ending. Oops. Go back one or two. Sorry, guys. Touchscreen here. So how does it work? So on the illustration at the bottom, we have one product running that is scanning people where they don't have to stop in a line. A lot of practices have a single file line to do one person at a time. So there are different companies that make different products and have different methods of scanning. But in short, these units measure radiated energy from the skin, typically forehead spots on the forehead, or it could be the inside of the eye, the tear duct, and just basic surface temperatures. And we'll talk about how some of the companies do it differently than others, and things like that. So they're accurate from a distance. They allow you to practice social distancing. They're non-contact, non-invasive. They allow you to maintain that distance. So it expedites pre-screening entry. Lines are able to move from a steady pace, whether it's one person at a time, or it's several seconds each person. There's so many you can do per hour, or whether in this video here, we had an example of a setup of a unit that is popular for this, that is able to do it while it's moving, because it uses artificial intelligence to take multiple samples and then compare them against each other to form a relative baseline temperature and find out who's deviating from that baseline. That would be considered a unit that uses artificial intelligence and uses some software processing to get a certain result. So is this difficult? So we'll say there's no special training required, there's no license required, but there is a caveat of, I say, you should be educated on the technology, so to set a realistic expectation of skin temperature. Oftentimes it might be a degree lower than your body temperature, or if you have a product that measures that has a measurement technique that correlates the body temperature, how that's supposed to be working. Most of these products can be set up very quickly. They're point and shoot, you set them up. In this case, in the picture here, we have an example of a product from Seek that has a fixed heat source. It has a person that stands beside it. It is 5 feet away. And then there's a camera that has a thermal camera and a visual camera, and then a computer. So this is a very simple setup. It's one of our least expensive solutions. The software is very simple. It has a threshold of accuracy, and then a threshold that you can set for the alarm. You're going to get a picture, and we'll go over a few screenshots whether it has a pass or fail scanning for that temperature. And I can't say this fixed heat source, you'll also hear it called black body. These black bodies, certain units can measure a black body to make a unit more accurate. It allows it as a form of calibration. So one of the products we sell, and it's very popular, is a Seek thermal scan. This product scans one person at a time. So like I was saying, you set the alarm temperature. If the subject exceeds that temperature, a visual and audio signal is triggered. There are a lot of options on these if they want to turn off some of the alarms. And if you wanted to save the data, so some companies want nothing to do with saving data at all. Some companies are, they absolutely want to save when they hit a alarm. It's optional for a lot of the software on if it saves it or doesn't save it. A lot of larger companies we're seeing do not want to save it. It really depends on what you're looking to do, but there's a lot, there's some configured software options that either will allow you to save the data or not. So in this case, these units are 1995. The image you're seeing here is a very simple image. The newest version of the Seek software also allows you to set a threshold. So, for example, if 97 degrees is probably very common skin temperature to read off someone, about a degree and a half lower than what you would see for core body temperature. So maybe 99 for you is an elevated temperature because it's measured. In this case, the Seek unit is measuring skin temperature. So you have the ability to set that threshold, or if you just want to see it at a certain temperature range, you can do a offset temperature, so it'll add it to the temperature you're reading. For example, the item is reading 97, but you want to see it at 98, so you add that 1 degree compensation in there on the temperatures you're reading. We will talk shortly about systems that offer artificial intelligence to do that self-compensate for environmental variables, and will also compensate for comparing groups of people against each other. So we found that is very effective, has worked well for a lot of our customers. So this is just a simple setup video. Oh, great. There's not supposed to be audio. I'm going to talk over this. So in this case, you have 2 units on tripods. This is the black body that you would stand beside. That gives a unit, the unit something to calibrate against. So this unit's actually plus or minus 0.3 degrees centigrade versus some other units that are plus or minus 0.5 degrees centigrade, which is 0.9 degrees Fahrenheit. That unit itself is the thermal image and the regular camera built into it and the laptop. So in this setup, and of course the software gets loaded. In this setup, it's 2 tripods, black body, regular unit, and a computer. So it's very simple. We have other units that do not have the black body that just use the camera itself, so it needs one tripod, camera, computer. Okay, so another product we have that kind of fits in between a simple thermography product and a higher end AI solution is by Reichtech, and it's basically a unit that works with an IR sensor from a distance of about 1.5 feet. So it allows you to walk up to the unit. As you become closer, it'll outline where your face and eyes should be, and it'll frame it like a picture around your face, and then it'll give you your temperature and whether you're pass or fail. So customers have loved these for the simplicity of them. There's 2 versions we have of this product. One is a simple unit. It's either a kiosk, you can mount it on a table, you can mount it on the wall, or the stand that's shown in the picture is optional for $300. And it's really self-service. You walk up to it, you get your reading, get your pass or fail, and you go in. You can also output a pass-fail signal. There's a few different interfaces to say if you had a relay that had a door entrance, something like that. And there's a new version 2. That version 2 allows you to do a lot of things like, alert a text message, have a lot more configurations, a bunch of different interface options. That unit's the $29.99 unit versus the basic unit. But what these are doing is these are giving everyone just a very quick way to get a measurement without having to have a user or a person there. People are putting them all around their offices. They're putting them in conference rooms. You're seeing in all kinds of interesting applications where they want a very effective solution. I had one customer, as I look at my cell phone, it's been a crazy day. I overnighted him a demo unit. And his answer, I wish I had it verbatim, there's too many texts here. Basically, this unit is incredibly simple to use with 3 exclamation points. So I'm assuming that was a favorable response for the simplicity. So I'd like to take a second here to kind of talk about, while I'm going over these solutions and we get people back to work and we're checking our temperatures and, we're doing things for safety. Part of what we see a lot of our customers are doing this for is for, to make our employees feel that we're doing something that matters. We can't control when someone is sick and has no symptoms. We get that. Well, what do you do in that case? Well, that's a difficult case. And if I can't control it or measure it, I can't do a lot about it. I can practice social distancing. I can do the things the CDC and the government's recommending. But when we're getting back to work and we have to work, this is something we can control. And so far, a lot of feedback of the hundreds of customers, if not thousands, that we've sold units into is it does make people feel better that there's something their employer is doing to try to limit exposure of people and find problems. And it's just one of the things we could do to not only prevent this potential illness and measure temperature and find potential issues. It really allows them to feel that the employer is doing something that they care and that they're doing something that they can control and see visually. Um, and we also has feedback where people they kind of like the screening because they go through it, they see themselves, they see their temperature, and it's something they enjoy doing. And we've talked about this simple social distance setup. You walk up, you're 7 to 12, and I tested at 18 inches. I think the specs say you can go as far as 18 inches away. You get your temperature, you get your face, and you're good, and you maintain that 6 foot distance. And it's fast. It works in a few seconds. You go up, you scan, you go. It's self-serving. It's a self-serving product, and it is a simple solution using IR. So another solution in the market, FLIR, a fantastic company, great quality company. Their units are FDA 510 cleared. They were used in previous pandemics. Price points on FLIR cameras start at $5,000 and go to $33,000. So they're expensive, but the quality of a FLIR camera is fantastic. They do things a little bit different. They measure temperature from the inside of the eye, and it's a very accurate technique. Their systems are one at a time, and the software does not automatically recognize the faces. You have to draw a box around each user. There's a few videos we have in our buying guide that goes over it. It's extremely popular. It's one person at a time screening, a little bit higher price point than some of the products we just talked about. Next is we have a Photrix unit, a 226B. This unit scans multiple subjects simultaneously, and it has built-in artificial intelligence for facial detection. So you can see in the boxes below, it automatically is highlighting the faces of individuals. It's good for groups of people. All techniques, when you're doing EBT testing with thermography, you want to look at the camera. In this case, you can always leave the face mask on. We get that question. We get that question a lot about the masks. Photrix does it a bit differently because they add the artificial intelligence and the software intelligence to be able to do groups. That line doesn't have to stop. It can continue to move. It has a fairly high resolution sensor. So I'll also talk about all thermal imagers have a sensor. So you'll see a spec, a thermal array. So it's either, a 240 by 120 or a 320 by whatever it is. And the higher that sensor that sensor number is, you multiply the two numbers together, and that's how many different individual points it's measuring in that sensor. The higher the resolution, the more fine the detail. Depending on the camera, the farther you can be away. The more individual measurements it's taking, so it's more accurate because it's averaging less points. It has a smaller area. Anyway, just back on the Photrix product. So that artificial intelligence is a unique advantage that Photrix has over some other products. and the ability to have automated screening where the lines keep moving. And we do have, I think, 70 or 80 of these in stock on the Fotrix, which is another advantage. I think the Seek units we're talking about before, second week of May is availability right now for new orders. So similar to the rest of them, they deploy in as little as 10 minutes. So it's the same thing. You need one tripod, a unit, and you need a laptop. Whether that laptop can output to another screen, that's fine. So users can get visual feedback. The picture here, someone just has a a TV mounted there for additional feedback. But there's software that runs on the laptop, so that connects to the laptop and to a screen. There are statistics in the software. There's a number of screenings that are in there. So there is a Hawk. It's called Hawk AI mode, where the camera itself can learn. I think it takes 10 different individuals as they're coming in. It learns their temperature, and then it'll automatically tell you who's outside what it considers a normal deviation. So it's learning about environmental conditions and adjusting for those automatically based on the people that are coming in. This Fotrix unit supports up to 20 subjects at one time. So we talked about the FLIR units, the single units, one at a time, they stop and they're passed. The Seek unit is less expensive, but it allows you to do, again, one person at a time. This unit, through artificial intelligence, is able to do up to 20 subjects at one time. I mean, best practices that we've been recommending is that the line that comes in maintain social distance. Obviously, nothing in this picture is socially distanced. Depends on everyone's application and how they would be using it. This is the actual software itself. Some of the icons up here, there's different settings, and this has a visual picture on the right, thermal image on the left. Again, you can choose if you want to save images that have hit your threshold or not. There is a setup and some statistics. This unit will also support a black body to improve the accuracy. Black body lead time is probably at this point 2 to 3 weeks. The cameras themselves are in stock. So of course, again, this is the line. The lines keep moving. Subjects, and with this unit, do not need to stop. They can perform those temperature screenings with the line moving. They're able to maintain ample distance from those passing through. So another advantage of that unit. And this should be known because some products do this and some don't. So this automatically detects and locks in the faces in the frame. It's important. In this case, we're highlighting that someone has a hot water in their hand, so it's not going to the hottest part of what it's seeing. It's actually detecting the face. It's not detecting, when I say artificial intelligence, it's not detecting the actual person or who it is, but it's detecting that is a face. We get that question a lot on the AI. People are afraid that it's detecting who it is and identifying them. It's not. When they say artificial intelligence, it's looking for that face. It's locking into the face and giving a temperature. Best practices, in this case, this person has sunglasses on. I would say best practice is to never use sunglasses, but this unit uses a whole variety of points. So it has, with that artificial intelligence, it can measure a number of points on the forehead and get a accurate temperature, and with multiple people in the same frame, compare them against each other to see who has the elevated body temperature, or elevated skin temperature, I should say. So like a lot of other units, audio and visual alerts, when there's something abnormal, it'll detect whether you want an audio alert or a visual alert. It's a setting. And again, we push that it's optionally storing the data, whether you want it stored or not. A little bit about the camera itself and the technology. I think we all know the sophisticated and how some of these lenses work and the different units that they have. we get a lot of questions about can it be used 24/7, and they can. Um, and this unit is just one of the ones we've been selling. Configuring your space, we've talked about it, and this is a socially distanced environment, so that's not happening right here in the United States. But in non-pandemic areas, it does have the ability to measure groups of people. So if you had to run them through, this is just an example. We don't recommend this type of setup. Before the pandemic, when people were measuring temperature and walking into a company or room, any kind of thing like that, this was a setup that some companies were using. One of the things to note is the detection distance on this camera is up to 10 feet. The FLIR unit is from 3 to 5 feet. The Seek unit we talked about is fixed at 5 feet. That's a fixed distance that can't be changed. So there's varying distances that you can measure sub people with. Simple line configuration I've talked about several times. Now, one of the other things that we say is, okay, if someone has been identified having a potential elevated skin temperature, what do you do? So we recommend non-contact forehead thermometers. We have 3 units that we offer that are FDA cleared. That are very similar to each other. The X-Tech unit has a better range on distance. It can be farther away. A lot of the units, you have to be a couple inches from the forehead, take a temperature, secondary screening. Does that also say that, hey, I have a potential fever? Another thing they could do is an actual medical grade thermometer. Medical grade thermometer, but you're making contact with the person at that point, whether you're going inside someone's ear or doing it orally. That would be a medical grade thermometer for secondary testing. So a lot of customers that we've been seeing do these 2-stage, 2-level screenings, and they do it with thermography and then the secondary screening, forehead thermometers. But obviously, it requires labor. Someone's got to be there. They're doing the secondary screening, but as certainly the best business practice to do that. And these are FDA 510 cleared, which you need for these forehead thermometers. I should say the number of I'll call it poor quality infrared thermometers, they're out there. So in the forehead thermometers, just consider the quality and the source, just so that you have a product that will work accurately for you. Now I think I rushed through this a bit in terms of the seminar itself. Usually questions take about a half an hour. So we'll open this up for questions. A little bit about if someone has questions going forward. So a lot of customers need us to get on the phone to do a conference call to go over the ins and outs of the technology. Our sales teams are available to do that. I'm available to do that as well. If someone needs pricing or availability, you can call us, chat with us through the website, or email us. Our email is listed here. Our phone numbers are here as well. We will be sending out a copy of this presentation, after we're done. So I'm gonna just answer some questions here. Have you worked with casinos? Yes, absolutely. We work with casinos. We have a number of units into casinos that are doing group monitoring. It's interesting on that application. There is an incredible interest from that arena, obviously, with everything sort of as we try to get back to work and back to some level of normal. So we definitely have seen a number of units go into that environment. Is a laptop tripod included with these models? So we have a laptop available that we pre-configure with the software already installed. The laptop is, I believe, it's $650. So it's a basic laptop, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 3 USB ports, Wi-Fi. You can buy any laptop that is Windows-based laptop that has a reasonable amount of memory in it. Will work. Nothing particularly powerful. we're providing those laptops. It's just a service to help people out and, you know, pre-installing the software. So basically you have a solution that's ready to go. Does the Rich Tech items need a black body? So no, the Rich Tech items that you walk up to, they work more like an elaborate forehead thermometer. So they use IR. So they're measuring multiple points on the forehead. They have some AI in terms of matching the face, making sure you're visually in the right spot, making sure it's uh, measuring. It'll identify your face, whether it's in the right location. So it has and we have some videos on our website. If you go to the videos, the video explains everything. But just imagine a very simple product. You walk up to it, make sure it recognizes a face, scans you, gives you a temperature, you walk on. Very, very, very simple product. So what's the difference between accuracy, resolution? Um, so in terms of accuracy, there's a repeatability of a measurement. A lot of these units are spec'd at plus or minus 0.5 degrees centigrade, which is 0.9. What you should know a lot about the thermography products is the relative temperature to each person being accurate. Don't think that a unit that's measuring skin temperature is going to be accurate within realm to the body temperature. So for example, using a forehead thermometer, it's very common. If I'm 97.5, that's very common. That's good for me. That's normal. Where my internal temperature may be 98, you know, 0.5 or 0.7. Let's see. Do any units have facial recognition, not just face detection? So no, none of the units we have will recognize the actual individual. There are some, there is a V2 version of the Rich Tech unit that allows you to use employee identification to kind of log a few things, but that's requiring, you know, a bunch of setup and input-output configuration. So these units can tie into a badge access system, employee denied entry into the facility. So the only unit that can do that is the V2 version of the Rich Tech unit that we have. Sorry, just a lot of questions coming in. So what units are available? So just the general lead time, I'll give you an approximation. On the low end of the FLIR cameras, the units that are approved for that have what's called a screening mode, lead time is currently about 3 to 5 weeks on cameras like that, probably closer to 5 weeks. We have several cameras are in stock that are toward the higher range, the $30,000 range or so, but lead times are about probably 4 to 5 weeks. The Seek unit lead time is 2 weeks for new orders. It's again, at that price point, it's very popular. And the Photrix, I think we have a number of them in stock right now, so they can ship today. Does the 226B Photrix unit require calibration each year? So it has an internal calibration, so it doesn't need the yearly calibration. With all test equipment and thermography equipment, though, you can send it in to get calibrated yearly, but it's not necessarily needed on that unit. So are they Bluetooth or hardwired to a PC? So the Photrix unit, the Seek unit require a PC. The FLIR unit is a handheld point and shoot camera. So you do not need a PC. It has a small screen on it. Please confirm which units do not require an individual to do the screening. So that'd be the Rich Tech unit. So the Photrix units and the Seek units, so they're made to have a user run the software. If you want to give user feedback to someone and say, I have a threshold I set up and I want to just leave it, and I want to see the users when they come in, you can. I would recommend you need a laptop, have an HDMI out. The laptop we are offering really as a courtesy does have an HDMI out. You can output that into a TV. You can give the user the feedback. The ideal environment, though, is having a user there that is helping screen. The Rich Tech units have a 2-week lead time, someone's asking. How sensitive are these units to angles to read property? For your examples, the face were direct versus angled to the camera. So the best practice is always to be looking at the camera. So it really depends on the particular unit. The Rich Tech unit you have to look directly at. FLIR unit you look directly at. The Folkdruk unit, with their artificial intelligence aspect of the unit, you can get a temperature when you're looking away. Best practices though are still to look at the camera when you're walking through, so that it has effective range on the forehead. A couple more questions here. Can the SeekScan laptop be connected to an extra long cable in the range of 25 foot? So yes, you can get a USB extension cable on any of these units that would work. In fact, we'll probably be offering that as an option soon once I get a cable that I would recommend and test. But extending the USB is not a problem, so that you can be farther away. So this, again, a couple more here. One, two more here. George, I'll take one more question, and then we'll go from there. Pricing and availability. I think we've kind of gone over pricing and availability. The big thing on whatever product you get for your business, for me, is just that everyone understands the technology, how it works, how it's being applied, so they have realistic expectations of what to do. We like to think of ourselves as being part of the solution out there. This is our way to be part of the solution. So as much information as we can get out there on how to do proper screening and what that screening looks like, and setting those realistic expectations of what you can get done is important to us. One more. Do any of these systems account for variations that the people are walking in from outside when it's hot summer and the cold? So that's something I should have talked about. So these products, the best practice is that your environmental conditions remain constant. What that means is, in an ideal environment, someone would come into a room, wait a few minutes, and then be scanned. So if you're in a hot sun and we're going into the summer and it's 100 degrees outside, and I was outside and I come in and I'm scanned by a thermography product or even an infrared forehead, it's going to be hot. It's going to read hot. Your core body temperature can be even a little bit hot, but it's not going to be an effective way to say, do I really have a elevated body temperature that is not from the environmental conditions outside? We get a lot of questions about using them outside. So I'll say it is possible to use these outside, but is much more difficult. So if I was to use a product outside, you can't do it in the sun. You have to be wary about using shade, whether it's a tented system or not. People want to use them, say, like in a guard tower. Someone pulls up in their car, you do a scan. So can you do it? Yes. Does it work consistently? I mean, that is much more difficult. So someone has the air conditioning blasting in their car and it's blowing on their skin, and you're trying to get core body temperature, it's not going to work as good as an environment that you can control. Yeah, I mean, if you're using it outside and you have the budget, getting a second one inside the break room. So I should also say, in ideal situations, you measure employees when they come into the building and you measure them going out. You'd be like, why? Why do I do this? Obviously, a lot of things happen during the day. You can be working, you could have a factory, you could have a warehouse, and things change throughout the day in someone's health. So on the way out, maybe they decided that maybe they got a low grade fever, or maybe something changed. So measuring on the way in and the way out is a very good practice. Providing a way for people to take temperature measurements inside of a break room has been an interesting development that we've seen customers do. Um, that's really ideal. So having in my office, when we go back in, we'll have a thermography set up. We call it the fishbowl, but it's a way you walk in, you're contained. There's a unit there. That unit passes, we get buzzed in to the main office. And then we'll have units set up where an employee can walk up and get their quick temperature themselves and then walk away. So there'll be ways to the employees do that. And for the most part, the feedback we got is, employees like doing this. This is something that is for their health and their well-being and protects everyone. All right, so I appreciate everyone's time today. I'm sure there'll be a lot of further questions. If you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to the sales teams via phone, email, there's online chat. Um, in certain situations, we can provide references of other customers who have used units. It just depends on the particular situation. We do have a very limited demo pool of certain items depending on situations out there. But feel free to reach out to us, or if there's anything else we can do for you, or any questions you may have, please feel free to contact us, and I appreciate everyone's time.